If you crave a passionate relationship with the world's creator, if you have a hankering for greatness, or you just wish you could finally quit, forgo sin, I beg of you that you listen to the words of the Ramban. I beg of you that you hear the way that Revolba, the great mashgiach, explains them. And I will, in this episode, endeavor to do my best to give over this yesod, this fundamental idea, the way it was explained to me. I heard this idea in a shiur given by Revolba's Talmud, Reb Reuven Leuchter. He said it at an assembly in Los Angeles last year, and I bookmarked the idea so that when we would have the opportunity to discuss it, I would pull it out. I hope that you will see the power of the idea. And if internalized, it can save us a whole bunch of headaches that we face down here on this earth. It can really be, if taken to heart, that key that we're looking for to unlock those steps and those rungs that we're trying to climb towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Parshas Ba'aloscha. We begin, Vayihi ben Asoya ha'aron vayomer Moshe kuma Hashem v'yafutzu oivecha v'yanusu misonecha miponecha. It is at the beginning of the 6th Aliyah that we have those psukim that you probably well recognize from when we open up the Ark and take out the Torah scrolls. We say this little tefillah that Moshe Rabbeinu said in the wilderness as the Torah marches. Moshe made this prayer. We mimic his actions and say that prayer. Vayihi ben Soa ha'aron. Before going on to Uvenucha yoimar shuva Hashem rivevois alfei Yisrael. But it is rather impossible to miss that just before this pasuk and just after this pasuk, you will find a very rare, odd phenomenon. Interesting occurrence, if you will. There are two island-like, placed in the middle of Randomville in the Torah scroll, inverted letters. They look like inverted nuns. You got to see it to believe it. They look upside down. They look backwards. Hard to even understand that they are a letter. It looks like the sofer messed up, quite frankly. But of course, there are no mistakes. Look in every single kosher Sefer Torah, you will find these inverted nuns that bookend and sandwich the Vayihi ben Soa ha'aron and Revos alfei Yisrael. Why? Well, just like every other problem that should arise or lack of clarity that we have in studying the Torah, the best place to begin is the great Reb Shlomo Yitzchaki, the great Rashi HaKadosh. So too, we look down, we glance down and see what Rashi says about it. Sure enough, Rashi tells us, Asalo Siman. There are signs surrounding these psukim, milafanav umilacharav, lomar, it is to tell you, she'ein zeh makomo. This isn't the proper spot of these psukim. The passage has kind of been copied and pasted here. Continues Rashi. Because kadei lahafsek bein puranos, the puranos, to separate from two tragic stories. For it seems to be some bad omen to have sad, perhaps even uninspiring episodes next to each other. So Hashem did us a taiva. Let's put in Moshe Rabbeinu's tefillah to separate, to divorce the two passages from each other. But jumping right into it, the Ramban takes issue with his Rebbe. He calls him Rabbeinu, Harav, Rebbe. I don't understand what bad episode happens before Vayihi ben Soa. See, it is quite well known. Just read the psukim and translate them as Parakid Aleph continues that we're going to meet two horribly tragic episodes. One about complainers and one about some rabble-rousers who were interested in increasing their lustful cravings. But Vayihi ben Soa isn't separating those. It's before those two narratives. He endeavors to say that maybe it's out of order, but ultimately he reverts to his own teretz. And he tells us this great yesod. Says the Ramban, and I'm sure you've heard it before, but the words never get old, that while it may not seem like anything tragic happened in the psukim prior to Vayihi ben Soa Ha'aron, but if you look closely in the subtext, you'll see it. It says, Vayisu mehar Hashem derech shloshes yomim. Aaron bris Hashem nosei lifneim derech shloshes yomim lasor lehem menucha. Inconspicuous, a very innocent pasuk. They marched from the mountain of Hashem for 3 days, and the Aron was with them. It traveled before them on a 3-day journey to seek a resting place for them, to make it pleasant for them. All good things, happy things, peaceful things. Where is the tragedy here? Where is a sin? Says the Ramban, inciting a medrash, I'll tell you where the sin is. Because if you read the pasuk critically, you'll see that it says, Vayisu. And they not marched, but they fled. It has that connotation and denotation. They fled. They were leaving with a certain willingness and perhaps even, as we'll see, craving to leave the mountain of where the greatest arena is located. The Mecca of Har Sinai, says the Ramban, citing this medrash, the Indian is that Shenasu Mehar Hashem Besimcha, they left this mountain of Hashem with happiness, rejoicing. Ketinoik haboyreach mi beis hasefer, chilling graphic imagery like a child who's running out of school. It's recess time. School's out. That's how the Jews left the mountain. Amru, they said in their hearts, Shema yarbe v'yitain lanu mitzvos. Maybe God's going to give us more mitzvos. Oh, the teacher forgot to give us homework. It's only 613. Let's get out of here before it's 614 mitzvos we have to do. Vayisu mehar Hashem. Ramban is medayik. Shayim achshavtam, their thoughts. Lahasiya atzmon misham. They were distancing themselves from this area, from this locale, mipnei shehu har Hashem, because it was Hashem's mountain. And those are the perennials. Those are the punishments, the tragedies, if you will, that take place just before this inverted nun. And the Ramban continues, and you know what would have been the chazaka, you know what would have been the tragedy, because now we would have 3 straight tragic narratives that really create a halachic chazaka. A chazaka, a predetermined or consistently happening occurrence that makes something set that it will continue to happen. A chazaka. If something happens 3 times in a row, we assume it's going to continue to happen. 3 sad stories, 3 sins, 3 bad decisions. Fleeing from the mountain before the Messianim, the complainers, and then leading towards the Hisasvu Taiva. Hashem saved us. Let us pause for commercial break between the first and the second sin and throw in the inverted nuns and stick in Moshe's tefillah of Vayihi ben Soa Aaron. And Revolba learns the Rishon like we all should be learning Rishonim, and asking very directly, what type of chazaka is the Ramban concerned about here? The halachos of chazaka are that things need to be not just, bad, but it has to be 3 in the same cause, in the same entity, in the same idea that happen in a row. Meaning, it can't just be, running from a mountain, one bad thing, but that doesn't have any correlation, any connection. It's not synonymous with the next happening of complaining. That's not a chazaka. They have to be me'inyan le'inyan ba'oisai inyan on the same topic. And what do these 3 things have to do with each other that the Ramban is concerned about? A chazaka? Revolba's answer? His insight? Is the ticket to the chocolate factory. It's the aside we've all been waiting for. Or should have been waiting for. Revolba says there's something about every person that is hardwired in. Every person is called Adam. A person. Adam. And we know that the letters, the word, the actual etymological basis of the word, Adam, its root, it tells us a great deal about what the entity is. And Adam, Chazal tell us, if you scramble the words around, you'll see what it is. It is a beautiful creation that is ma'od. Adam, Aleph, Daled, Mem could also be spelled and rearranged for Mem, Aleph, Daled, Ma'od, wanting more, craving more. That is the gift, that the job of only one species in all of Hashem's creations is that it can and should become more than what it is. Everything else, a domem, a tzomeach, a chai, it cannot elevate. It cannot do ma'od. It cannot become like a person. But people, not only do we have the ability to become ma'od, to become more, but we are commanded that just like I am racham, af ato racham, we are to become godlike, angelic. And the biting truth is that this hankering for more in life, it cannot be ripped out. You could try to wipe the phone, factory reset it many, many times, but it would be just like taking out the actual motherboard and hard drive that is the phone. It can't be deleted. It's part of the actual Adam, is that he wants more. It is this idea that is on full display and what is behind the chazaka here of the Ramban. If you read the Ramban critically, they were afraid of wanting more. They were afraid, if you read it, it says, Shema yarbe v'yitein lanu mitzvos. We're good with Torah. We don't need more. We don't want more. We are joyous. We are content. We got 613. No more. Vayistu mehar Hashem. They didn't want more. They didn't want to have the hankering, the craving and aspiring for more Torah. They didn't want. Vayistu mehar Hashem. And they are directly connected, all three. For if you don't want in Kedusha, it doesn't fix that DNA of man. For he is Adam, he is Ma'od, he wants more. One thing led to the next. And we hear about the nation became complainers. Vayiham kimesonim. Rab oznei Hashem. Hashem became angry at them and ravaging the outskirts of the camp. The Ramban tells us, though, again, look at it. The nation was They were like complainers. They didn't really have anything to complain about. They had everything that they could possibly want. But they still spoke and complained and moaned with the bitterness of their soul, as if somebody who wanted and was craving something but wasn't sure what it was, even though that they had everything and should have served Hashem with the gladness of their heart. But they complained because that hankering can't be quieted. That craving for more, they could not quiet in their bellies, even though they had everything. The desire for more, it reared its angry head in areas outside of Ruchnius. Because the Vayisu Mehar Hashem, but it needed to come out somewhere. So it just came out as misonin, and they were like complainers, unable to quiet their consciousness, their conscience. But it doesn't stop there. The descent down the rabbit hole of human and mankind's inability to quiet that inner craving for more. It goes from the running from the mountain of Hashem into the kimis onanim, the fruitless and pointless and senseless and meaningless complaints, even though they had it all. And eventually, the craving for more has to, by its own DNA, it has to create a longing for more. His asvu taiva. The Erev Rav, they felt a lusting. They incited a lusting. They goaded themselves into a taiva, his asvu taiva. The Ramban tells us that they became desirous and lustful, that they wanted to eat hapichamim v'ha'afar v'hama'achilim haniv'ashim. They wanted and they had a taiva to eat even charcoal and earth, minerals, dirt, sand, and other rotten food. They craved it. How's that possible? I've never heard of anybody that wanted a charcoal meat board. You want to eat dirt? You have a passionate taiva for it? It doesn't make any sense. But of course, we understand that hankering and that drive for more, if it isn't met somewhere, our brains, the Yetzer Hara, creates new routes to fulfill it. So we may even come to crave the most rotten foods. And in the easiest segue, just look at America. Look at the gross, rotten foods that people lust for. Look at the odd things that people indulge in. Look at the ma'odkeit that people are suffering from because they aren't striving for something more in ruchnius. I actually wrote a letter that I was going to publish somewhere, but I thank God chose not to. I was upset one day when I was going to listen to one of the Jewish podcasts I like to listen to, and I was inundated by rainbow flags declaring and appreciating and celebrating the month of June that's supposed to represent Pride Month. And I was to go immediately and I was going to write a letter about how horrible it is that this clearly written wretched sin of Mishkav Zachar, of course it's prohibited, but now people are even rejoicing, celebrating, and taking pride in the sin. But I didn't publish it. And I'm happy I didn't because it's not even novel or new. Of course, somebody will bake up rotten food, gross hankerings, if they don't want more in Torah, mitzvos, and in matters of the soul. And there isn't hardly one American in 1,000 that will be found that actually has a real craving for just moral justice and matters of the mind and soul. So Pride Month was imminent. Dare we even say inevitable? Another classic example of this that just is too easy, sitting in broad daylight. It is between a season and any of the basic sports, between seasons and any basic television series, books, series, show, series, radio series, anything that the average American will enjoy as entertainment, there's always a break between seasons. Time to either revamp, renew, revitalize, recreate a new season. Time to give players, actors, performers a break. But one of my Rebbeim pointed out, I go onto the news sites, or don't, but if one looks, God forbid, at these news sites in the off season, they're packed with updates, with new free agent signings. What somebody did or said made to be important. The promotion of the product, even though it's in between seasons, it's as if you would have thought that is the regular season, even though it's in the dead of winter and the next season isn't to begin for many moons. But it's obvious because those that run these platforms understand that you got to keep people constantly wanting more. Otherwise, they will eat rotten food, or in their case, they will turn to a different show, movie, book, or entertainment outlet. You have to constantly revamp and renew the content so that there is no off-season. They know that Adam always wants ma'od, and they will always give you ma'od to keep you in. And of course, in the most basic human craving and wanting of more, when it comes to wealth, when it comes to craving more money, one must be so careful of this idea that yes, kesef ya'anes hakol. Ecclesiastes, Shlomo HaMelech tells us that money does answer everything. Those are his words, kesef ya'anes hakol. And yes, we must have money to be able to pay our bills, to be able to give charity, to be able to do what is obligated to be done. But God forbid, don't ever come close to you have 100, Ratzah Masayim, the craving for the money. We are told very clearly that yes, you should have money. Yes, you should take it seriously. But don't have that craving and lust for it. And ladies and gentlemen, what is the answer? How is it that we are faced with these guns facing at us, that we, by our DNA, crave more? How is it that we are supposed to turn off these valves if they cannot be turned off? The answer is to channel it, is to crave more in ruchnius. It is the only way. The aside is that even if you try to put up all the filters in the world, all the blockades to prevent evil from getting in, it will not help unless you channel that inner belly to want more of what matters. The chiddush is that even if you love Torah and you're proud of what you have amassed in your Torah knowledge, we are still sitting in harm's way unless we learn to want more. We must want more chesed. We must have that drive in the belly to have more understanding of Gemara, of Halacha, more of a devekus and a connection to Hashem. It is not to be pushed down, hidden, covered inside of us to try to get rid of this taiva, but to channel it to crave more of the Almighty and His precious Torah. Kol avodas ha'adam, to create a longing for what is good, for what is just, for the boirei olam. That is it. It truly actually is an empowering idea. It isn't about blockading the evil, which can feel impossible in these days with the assault of immorality at every turn. It's obvious that one still needs to have his protection. But where the battle is really won and lost is in the belly if you can change your mindset and attitude for what you aspire in life, what you wish to amass. So what is only left to discover is how we can create this longing for what is spiritual. How can we have a fire in our belly for God and His Torah? I compiled a couple ways, and if you use your brain, I'm sure you can think of a couple different approaches. But you know how you can love spirituality? You know how you can love Hashem? Well, very simply, give to it. Reb Dessler taught us that have ahava, love, when you love someone, it is because you are actually giving to them. The soul, when it gives, it connects to something. You love it. A mom gives everything to a child, and just look at the love that the mom has for a child. The more you give, the more you love. It's really a topsy-turvy, backwards world. So give more to God. Give more charity. Consecrate yourself. Set up more kavata study sessions la Torah. Give more to Hashem and watch how your heart will begin to want more of it. Maybe use Chazal's famous phrase of that a person should learn what his heart desires, mashali boy chafetz in this instance. A second way to learn how to love God is to learn how to enjoy it. Instead of going, like we say, for a jog, go play basketball because you enjoy it, but it's the same exercise. Find the part of Torah you enjoy to study. Find the part of chesed that you are passionate about. Mashali by chafetz. This way you can learn to want more of Hashem and His Torah. Maybe thirdly, surround yourself with only things. This is a hard way, but surround yourself like they do in some ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods in Yerushalayim and Ma'a Sha'arim. You'll see that they completely lock out any evil influences. So the whole world, really, their whole neighborhood, it is only one big world of matters that are of God and matters of the soul. So of course, you're going to only crave for what you know about. It's easier said than done, but surround yourself with only things that are of the soul. Or maybe this one seems like the most practical. Set up time to study about why engaging in the spiritual world and its pursuits is just so extraordinary. Learn about what life would look like when you had a mastery over Torah, over Halacha, brood over the chovos halavavo shara betachin, and just imagine your life with total peace as you know that you are like a baby that has been wrapped, snuggled, nestled in a swaddle. So too we are taken care of by the Almighty, and nothing evil can happen to us. Contemplate all the words of the Nefesh HaChayim, Reb Chaim Volozhiner's Nefesh HaChayim, specifically gate number 4, Shar Daled. Learn about the Milas HaTorah. Learn about the eternal reward that it gives you and your family. Learn about self-control. Learn about how the keeping of Halacha makes one mentally structured. It gives him a methodical and pleasant life. Whatever it takes. But we must find a way to have a passionate drive to want more of what is truly good. And like this, it will protect us from initially just meaningless complaints, because our belly is growling. It wants more, but it doesn't know what it wants more of. It just wants more of something. But if that wanting more isn't channeled towards Torah, then this three-legged tragic chain of events ends up in the graveyard of Kivros Hataiva, the cemetery of the lustful. I've never been there, but it doesn't sound like a pleasant place. It is our job. It is our responsibility to learn to crave the nutrition, the food, the nourishment for the soul, to warm our hearts and inspire our souls to want and long and hanker and crave and aspire for more ruchnius. That is the answer, friends. Run after it. Rotz. Skip to try to gain connection to the Almighty. It is this way that the Ramban shows us that we can be protected from senseless complaints that lead to rebellious sins. Like this, learning to want more, that will keep us from, God forbid, ever severing our connection to our loving Father in heaven.
Kilam kedosh